VigilanteWilliamson here with a very simple question, and that is, where in the world do boxing peers get off being so critical of some of the fun and maybe outlaw boxing matches we've had? That includes, for instance, the Ngannou Tyson Fury, which is coming up Saturday, and some other crossover fights that have been rumored and put out there, including the past Mayweather-McGregor fight that was huge several years ago, or the KSI / Logan Paul, Misfits, Jake Paul, that whole YouTuber boxing scene. And I'm not saying you need to be a fan of it, you need to love it. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. And hell, I was even critical of Tyson Fury ducking contenders for this Ngannou fight, but since he's made a fight with Usyk, so I really have nothing to say. I even called him the Gypsy Queen before he did that, but he made the fight that I wanted, so at least on paper he made the fight. We'll see if it actually happens. So at least for now, I have nothing to say about him. You know, I don't see where boxing gets off to be so critical of these, I don't know what you want to call it. They're not real boxing as far as being pro fights. Amateur boxing, hyped up amateur boxing. There's no sanctity in this sport. Let's not forget that the mob ran the sport for the longest time. On top of that, there's still controversies. I mean, let's talk about Haney-Loma. Everyone thinks that's such a controversial decision, and it's, you know, there was no rematch order. There was nothing. It just, life goes on. And never forget, Lomachenko got this thing called a franchise belt to duck Haney in the first place. Somebody say it's poetic justice. I called it a draw. I don't want all that smoke. Well, maybe I do want some of the smoke. Bring it here. No, seriously. Devin Haney was the mandatory for Lomachenko. He got a franchise belt, which meant he had to duck it, or he got the ability to duck it. Dev got an email belt. We already went through that in 2020 or 2021, whatever it happened. But that was allowed. You were allowed to duck your mandatory. Same thing happens to Canelo Alvarez. He got a franchise belt at one point in time. And granted, at least Canelo Alvarez will fight more than once a year. He actually fought like 4 times in a year at 168 to be the undisputed champion. So he deserves some credit for that. But there's a thing called a franchise belt that exists where you can get out of fighting your mandatory challenger. That is just okay. We've normalized it. No big deal. Hell, there's a lot of people who get out of their mandatories, including the aforementioned Tyson Fury, who doesn't even have a mandatory for the WBC without a franchise belt. It's just normal. The sanctioning bodies pick and choose who they want, and that's just how it is, and we're just all used to it. Hey, speaking of sanctioning bodies, Rolly Romero is a sanctioned world champion at 140 after fighting a guy nobody knew existed, who was well into his 40s and who was beating Rolly Romero in the fight as it was being stopped and the fight was being given to Rolly Romero. That happened this year. No big deal. It's just another day. It's just a Saturday. To you, it was the day your village died. To me, it was fucking Tuesday. That's just how it is in fucking boxing. I already mentioned nobody even wants to fight. We're lucky to get a guy to fight twice a year, even though we have the lowest attention span for fans ever. So no wonder they want to see their favorite YouTubers fight. Hell, if I blow up, I want to be a YouTuber boxer. That's why I call out Wings of Redemption every now and again, because unfortunately I'm in his weight class. I'm trying to get out of it, but as long as I'm in it, fuck it, Wings, I'm coming for you. Never mind. My point is, boxing is not on a high horse. Boxing is a fun sport. I still love the sport. I still like seeing professional fighters, but until the best fight the best on a regular basis, there's no way, no how, no ground to stand on to be critical of these fights. Hey, speaking of which, I've talked a lot about Al Heyman. Gotta thank Al Heyman. Did a video earlier this week. What about the British Al Heyman? My man Ben Shalom, who's put his fighters from multiple championship fights because he doesn't want them to fight on another network. This is all normalized. This bullshit behavior in boxing is normalized. It's just Tuesday, it's just Monday, it's just whatever day it happens. So how the fuck can a sport with this much normalized corruption, standardized corruption, be in any position to critique a fucking YouTuber for trying to make some money, and honestly probably doing boxing a service because they promote it in a different way, in a more WWE style. Hell, Logan Paul is a WWE wrestler, and actually not that bad of one. That's a whole nother can of worms. I'll maybe talk about it in a wrestling video. But there's no ground to stand on. There's no ground to stand on. There's probably a thing or two that boxing needs to learn from a lot of these fights. One, the promotional style was, speaking of WWE, it was cool to see John Fury in this fucking elimination chamber plexiglass banging on the damn glass. And hell, the Tyson Fury, the Ganyu promos, one of the best commercials I've ever seen for anything, let alone a boxing match. Hell, never forget, while boxing still has some sanctity, never forget that the 50th win for Floyd Mayweather is Conor McGregor. That was a sanctioned fight. A guy who had never fought before had one of the biggest paydays in boxing history. Boxing is fine. It's a wonderful sport, but it is losing ground to other sports, including the outlaw version of itself. And it has no one else to blame but itself. We can't get the fights that we want on a regular basis, so we can get the YouTubers we want to fight on a regular basis, we'll take it. If we get YouTubers, or if we get MMA fighters fighting boxers on a semi-regular basis, we'll take it, because we're starved for the real thing. We're not getting the real thing. Now, anything close to a regular basis, yes, this is one of the better years for boxing. Loma Haney, we got Spence Crawford, we got Tank Garcia. These have been some pretty big fights. We're gonna get Regis Prograve and Devin Haney in a few weeks, and maybe even by the end of this year, we'll see what happens. Usyk, Fury. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about with boxing, but come on, guys, let's not call this anything other than what it is. It's bullshit. It's probably a little bit of jealousy, and let's not kid ourselves. A lot of people who are very critical of the misfit cards, they still end up covering them. A lot of people who are very critical of these cross-promotional fights still end up covering them. Boxing is in no position, on no high horse, no soapbox to be telling anybody what to do. But that's just my thoughts. What do you think? If you like the video, please like the video. If you're so obliged to share and subscribe, please do that. But even if you do none of these things, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Good night and God bless. Peace.